The transport ship shook as it entered the atmosphere of Nexus Prime. Hyun pressed his face against the small window and watched the massive academy buildings grow larger below them. The structures looked like giant metal claws reaching up from the planet's surface. Other ships were landing too, bringing students from all across the galaxy. "First time seeing the academy?" asked Nari, the girl sitting next to him. She was also human, one of only 2 humans accepted this year. Her black hair was cut short and practical. Her eyes showed the same nervous excitement that Hyun felt. "Yes," Hyun replied quietly. "You?" "My 2nd year. I transferred from the basic program." Nari looked out the window too. "It looks scary from up here, but wait until you see the inside." The ship landed with a heavy thud. Around them, other students began gathering their bags. Hyun could see many different alien species. Some were tall and thin with blue skin. Others were covered in thick fur and had sharp teeth. A few looked almost like giant insects walking on 2 legs. "Stay close to me," Nari whispered. "Some of the other species don't like humans much." They walked down the ship's ramp together. The air outside smelled strange, like metal and electricity. The academy's main building towered above them, made of black stone and silver metal. Students were walking in groups toward the entrance. Most stayed with their own species. A large creature with gray skin and 4 arms bumped into Hyun as they walked. "Watch it, soft skin," the alien growled. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The creature was twice Hyun's size and had small spikes running down its back. "Sorry," Hyun said calmly, stepping aside. The gray alien snorted and walked away with his friends. They were all laughing and making harsh sounds. "That's Zeph," Nari explained as they entered the building. "He's from a warrior race called the Krugnari. They think they're the toughest species in the galaxy." The inside of the academy was even more impressive than the outside. The walls were covered with weapons from different worlds. Holographic displays showed famous battles from galactic history. Students moved through wide hallways that seemed to stretch on forever. "The academy has been training soldiers for over 1,000 years, Nari said as they walked. "Students come here from every known species. Only the best graduates get to join the Galactic Peace Force." They stopped at a large board that showed room assignments. Hyun found his name and saw he would be sharing a room with someone called Kex from the Velothi species. "The Velothi are hunters," Nari explained when he told her. "They have really good eyes and can see in the dark. Most of them are okay, but they think all other species are prey." Hyun's room was small but clean. There were 2 beds, 2 desks, and a large window that looked out over the training grounds. His roommate was already there. Kex was tall and thin with pale green skin. His eyes were large and completely black. When he moved, he made no sound at all. "You are the human," Kex said. His voice was soft but somehow threatening. "I have heard about your species. Very weak, very slow. Why did they let you come here?" "I passed the tests," Hyun replied simply, unpacking his bag. Kex watched him for a moment, then made a sound like a quiet hiss. "We will see how long you last." At dinner, Hyun and Nari sat together in the huge dining hall. The food was strange, but edible. Around them, different species sat in groups. The Krugnari were loud and aggressive, slamming their fists on tables as they talked about fighting. The Velothi ate in silence, their black eyes constantly watching everyone else. Another group with blue skin and extra arms discussed battle strategies in quiet voices. "Tomorrow we start classes," Nari said, eating something that looked like purple bread. "The instructors here believe in something they call fear conditioning. They think the only way to make good soldiers is to scare them first." "What do you mean?" Hyun asked. "They have these special classes where they try to frighten the students. They use recordings of scary sounds, holographic monsters, even real dangerous animals sometimes. The idea is that if you can handle being afraid here, you can handle anything in real combat." A shadow fell across their table. Hyun looked up to see Zeph and 2 other Krugnari standing behind them. "The humans are talking about fear," Zeph said loudly. His friends laughed. "Do you even know what fear is, softskins? Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no strength. What could you possibly be afraid of? Other students at nearby tables stopped eating to watch. Hyun could feel many eyes on him. Everyone is afraid of something, Hyun said quietly. Not Kragnari, Zeph boasted. We are born warriors. We fear nothing. He leaned down closer to Hyun's face. I bet you will run crying back to your little planet before the first week is over. Maybe, Hyun replied calmly. Maybe not. Zeph seemed surprised by the lack of reaction. He had expected anger or fear. Instead, Hyun just looked at him with calm, steady eyes. For a moment, something flickered across Zeph's face. Something that might have been uncertainty. Come on, one of Zeph's friends said, pulling on his arm. Let's go. These humans are too boring to bother with. They walked away, but Hyun noticed that Zeph kept looking back over his shoulder. You handled that well, Nari said when they were gone. Most new students would have been upset. Getting upset wouldn't help anything, Hyun replied. Later that night, as Hyun lay in his bed, he could hear Kex moving around the room. Even in the dark, his roommate made no sound. Hyun knew the Velothi was probably watching him, trying to figure out what kind of threat he might be. Through the window, Hyun could see the lights of the training grounds. Tomorrow would bring his first real classes at the academy. He had heard stories about the fear conditioning exercises. Some students never recovered from them. Others left the academy completely. But Hyun felt calm. He had always been good at staying calm, even when things got difficult. His parents had taught him that patience and quiet strength were more valuable than loud displays of power. He closed his eyes and listened to the strange sounds of the alien night. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the roar of some large creature. It was probably one of the animals they used for training exercises. Hyun smiled slightly in the darkness. Tomorrow, he would see what this academy could teach him about fear. The next morning came too early. A loud alarm filled the room, waking both Hyun and Kex. The Velothi was already moving before Hyun even opened his eyes. By the time Hyun sat up, his roommate was dressed and ready to leave. First class starts in 20 minutes, Kex said without looking at him. Try not to be late, human. Hyun got dressed quickly and met Nari in the hallway. She looked tired but excited. Ready for your first day? She asked as they walked toward the dining hall. I think so, Hyun replied. What's our first class? Combat Psychology with instructor Vextar. He's... Nari paused, looking for the right words. He's intense. His species believes that fear is the most important emotion a warrior can understand. They grabbed a quick breakfast and headed to the classroom. The room was large and circular, with seats arranged in rows that looked down toward a center area. Other students were already there, talking in their species groups. Instructor Vexitar entered exactly on time. He was tall and covered in dark scales that seemed to shift color in the light. His yellow eyes swept across the room, studying each student. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding. Welcome to Combat Psychology, he began. In this class, you will learn the most important lesson of warfare. Fear is power. Fear controls the battlefield. Fear decides who lives and who dies. He walked around the center area as he talked. Every species in this room has evolved with fear responses. These responses kept your ancestors alive. But they can also get you killed if you don't understand them. Zeph raised one of his forearms. Instructor, the Kragnari do not fear, we are warriors. Vextar's scaled face showed what might have been a smile. Is that so? We shall see. He pressed a button on a control panel. Today, you will meet something that has made warriors from 100 worlds run in terror. The floor in the center of the room began to move. A large cage rose up from below. Inside the cage was the biggest creature Hyun had ever seen. It stood 12 feet tall and was covered in black fur that seemed to absorb light. Its claws were as long as Hyun's hand and looked sharp enough to cut through metal. 6 bright red eyes glowed in its massive head, and when it opened its mouth, rows of teeth gleamed like knives. This is a shadow maw, Vextar announced. It comes from the death worlds of the Outer Rim. Its species has killed apex predators from dozens of planets. It can sense fear from across a battlefield and uses that fear to hunt. The creature in the cage moved with surprising grace for something so large. It sniffed the air and turned its head toward the students. Several aliens in the front row moved back in their seats. Your exercise is simple, the instructor continued. Each of you will approach the cage. You will stand at the marked line and maintain eye contact with the shadow maw for 60 seconds. It will try to frighten you. Your job is to resist. A student with blue skin and extra arms raised her hand. What happens if we can't do it? Then you learn something valuable about your own limits, Vextar replied. Who would like to go first? Zeph stood up immediately. I will show these weaklings how a Kregnari handles fear. The other Kregnari cheered as Zeph walked down to the center area. He stood at the marked line with his chest pushed out and his forearms crossed. The shadow maw turned to face him, and its red eyes began to glow brighter. The creature reared, up to its full height, and let out a roar that shook the room. It slammed against the cage bars with its massive claws. Its 6 eyes focused on Zeph with pure hatred and hunger. For the first 30 seconds, Zeph held his ground. He glared back at the creature and even roared back at it. But then something changed. The shadow maw stopped making noise and just stared at him. Its gaze seemed to look right through him as if it could see his deepest fears. Zeph's confident expression began to crack. Sweat appeared on his gray skin. His forearms started to shake slightly. At 45 seconds, he took a step backward. Stop, Vextar called out. Return to your seat. Zeph walked back up the steps, but he didn't look as confident as before. The other Kregnari still cheered, but their voices were quieter now. Not bad for a first attempt, the instructor said. The shadow maw can sense the warrior instinct in your species. It knows how to turn that instinct against you. One by one, other students took their turns. A Velothi hunter lasted only 20 seconds before her prey detection systems made her retreat. Students from peaceful species did even worse, some barely, managing 10 seconds before running back to their seats. The blue-skinned student with extra arms did better, lasting 35 seconds. But even she eventually stepped back when the creature focused all 6 eyes on her. Interesting, Vextar commented after each attempt. Each species has predictable breaking points. The shadow maw knows exactly which fears to target. Finally, it was time for the humans to try. The instructor looked at his class list. Nari of Earth, he called out. Nari stood up and walked down to the center. Hyun could see that she was nervous, but she kept walking steadily. She stopped at the marked line and looked up at the shadow maw. The creature turned toward her and began its intimidation display. It roared and slammed against the cage. Its claws scraped against the metal bars with a sound like grinding stone. But Nari just stood there, watching it calmly. The shadow maw tried different tactics. It made low, threatening growls. It showed its teeth and snapped its jaws. It even tried to reach through the bars toward her. But Nari didn't move. She just kept looking at it with steady, patient eyes. 60 seconds passed. Time, Vextar announced. He sounded surprised. Nari nodded politely and walked back to her seat. The other students were whispering among themselves. Many looked confused. Interesting, the instructor said slowly. The human showed no fear response at all. Perhaps your species is simply too primitive to understand the danger. Hyun of Earth, he called next. Hyun stood up and walked down to the center area. He could feel everyone watching him. The room was completely quiet except for the sound of the shadow maw moving in its cage. He stopped at the marked line and looked up at the creature. The shadow maw was already turning toward him, preparing another intimidation display. Its red eyes began to glow as it sensed a new target. But then something happened that no one expected. The moment the shadow maw's eyes met Hyun's, the massive creature froze. Its aggressive posture melted away like ice in the sun. The red glow in its eyes flickered and dimmed. Very slowly, the enormous predator took a step backward inside its cage. The room fell completely silent. Even Vextar stopped talking. The shadow maw continued to back away until it was pressed against the far wall of its cage. Its huge body was trembling. Its 6 eyes were wide with what could only be described as terror. A low, quiet whimpering sound came from its throat. Hyun just stood there looking at the creature with the same calm expression he always wore. He didn't seem angry or threatening. He just waited patiently for the 60 seconds to end. The shadow maw never stopped cowering. It kept itself pressed against the back of the cage as far from Hyun as possible. The whimpering sound continued. "Time," Vextar whispered. Hyun nodded and walked back to his seat. As soon as he looked away, the shadow maw collapsed to the floor of its cage, still shaking. The classroom erupted in shocked voices. Students turned to stare at Hyun, their faces showing confusion and disbelief. Even Zeph was gaping in amazement. "Instructor." Vextar looked at his control panel, then at the cage, then back at Hyun. His scaled face showed an expression no one had ever seen before. For the first time in his teaching career, Vextar had no idea what to say. The silence in the classroom stretched on for what felt like forever. Every student stared at Hyun as he calmly returned to his seat next to Nari. The shadow maw was still pressed against the back wall of its cage, making soft whimpering sounds. "Instructor." Vextar walked over to the control panel and checked the readings 3 times. His yellow eyes darted between the display and the cowering creature. Nothing made sense. "There must be a malfunction," he muttered to himself. He pressed several buttons, but the readings didn't change. The cage was working perfectly. The shadow maw was healthy and awake, but it was behaving like a terrified animal instead of the apex predator it was supposed to be. "Instructor?" called out a student with blue skin. "What just happened?" Vexitar's scales shifted to a darker color, which meant he was confused or upset. I'm not certain. In 30 years of using shadow maws for training, I have never seen anything like this." He walked closer to the cage. The shadow maw immediately tried to press itself even further against the back wall, even though there was nowhere left to go. Its 6 red eyes were fixed on Hyun, filled with pure terror. "The creature appears to be afraid," Vextar said slowly, as if he couldn't believe his own words. "But that should be impossible. Shadow maws fear nothing. They are born hunters. They kill things twice their size for sport." Zeph stood up, his 4 arms crossed. "Maybe the human used some kind of trick, some hidden technology." "Sit down," Vextar snapped. "Humans have no advanced technology. Earth is barely past the Stone Age compared to most civilizations." But even as he said it, the instructor's mind was racing. He activated a scanner and pointed it at Hyun. The device beeped and showed completely normal readings. No hidden weapons, no psychic amplifiers, no technological implants of any kind. "Hyun of Earth," Vexitar called out. "Please return to the testing area." Hyun stood up without complaint and walked back down to the marked line. As soon as he got close to the cage, the shadow maw began making distressed sounds. It tried to climb the back wall of its cage, desperate to get away from him. "Look at it," whispered Nari. "It's trying to escape." Other students leaned forward in their seats to get a better view. The massive creature that had terrified warriors from dozens of worlds was now acting like a frightened pet. Its claws scratched helplessly against the metal walls as it tried to find somewhere to hide. Vextar ran every scan he could think of. Biological scanner, technology detector, psychic field analyzer, even a time distortion meter. Every single reading came back normal. Hyun was exactly what he appeared to be, a young human with no special abilities or equipment. "This is impossible," the instructor said, his voice getting louder. "There has to be an explanation." He ordered Hyun to move to different positions around the cage. No matter where the human stood, the shadow maw cowered away from him. When Hyun moved to the left, the creature pressed against the right side of its cage. When he moved to the right, it scrambled to the left side. "Make it stop looking at me," Vextar commanded. Hyun turned his back to the cage. Immediately, the shadow maw's behavior began to change. Its trembling decreased slightly, though it still watched him nervously. But the moment Hyun turned around and made eye contact again, the creature collapsed to the floor with a sound like a wounded animal. "I need to contact the administration," Vextar announced. "Class is dismissed. Everyone except the humans may leave." The other students filed out of the room, talking excitedly among themselves. Zev paused at the door and looked back at Hyun with something that might have been respect, or possibly fear. When the room was empty except for Hyun, Nari, and the instructor, Vextar activated his communication device. "Director Saxelon, I need you in Classroom 7 immediately. Bring the xenobiology team." "What's the emergency?" came a voice through the speaker. "We have a situation with the fear conditioning exercise. The Shadow Maw is malfunctioning." "Malfunctioning how?" Vextar looked at the cage where the powerful predator was still curled up in a corner, shaking. "It's afraid of one of the students." There was a long pause. "That's impossible." "I know. Please hurry." Within minutes, the classroom filled with Academy officials and scientists. Director Saxelon was a tall, thin alien with silver skin and large black eyes. Behind him came Dr. Feltov, the head of xenobiology, and several other specialists carrying scanning equipment. "Show me," the director commanded. Vextar gestured for Hyun to approach the cage again. The results were exactly the same. The Shadow Maw immediately cowered away from him, whimpering like a beaten animal. Dr. Feltov ran forward with his scanner. "Impossible readings," he muttered. "The creature's stress levels are off the charts. Its fear response is stronger than anything we've ever measured." "What could cause this?" Director Saxelon asked. "Nothing," the doctor replied. "Shadow Maws don't have a fear response. They're apex predators. Their brains aren't wired for terror." But the evidence was right in front of them. The most dangerous creature in their training facility was pressed against the wall, too frightened to move, all because of a quiet human student. "Run every test," the director ordered. "Biological, technological, psychic, everything. I want to know what makes this human different." For the next 2 hours, they scanned Hyun from every possible angle. They tested his blood, his brainwaves, his genetic code, even the air around him. Every single test came back completely normal. Nari was tested too, with the same results. She also made the Shadow Maw cower, though not quite as intensely as Hyun did. "We need to contact Earth," Director Saxelon finally said. "Find out everything we can about human psychology and evolution." Dr. Feltov was studying readings on his portable computer. "Director, I've been comparing these results to our database of predator species. The Shadow Maw's behavior matches the response of prey animals when they encounter a superior predator." "That's ridiculous," Vextar protested. "Humans aren't predators. Look at them. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. They're obviously herbivores or scavengers at best." "The data doesn't lie," Dr. Feltov replied. "Something about these humans triggers the deepest fear response we've ever recorded. And it's not just fear, it's recognition." "Recognition of what?" The doctor looked up from his computer, his expression troubled. "Recognition of a superior predator. The Shadow Maw isn't just afraid of them. It knows, on an instinctual level, that they're more dangerous than it is." Director Saxelon turned to Hyun, who had been standing quietly through all the testing. "Have you ever encountered a Shadow Maw before?" "No, sir," Hyun replied politely. "Has your species ever encountered them?" "Not that I know of, sir." "Then why?" the director asked slowly. "Does it act like it recognizes you?" Hyun looked at the creature in its cage. The Shadow Maw was still watching him with terrified eyes, but it seemed unable to look away. "I don't know," Hyun said honestly. "Maybe it's confused about something." But even as he spoke, Dr. Feltov was pulling up more data on his computer. Files about extinct predator species, archaeological reports from dead worlds, and fragments of ancient records that no one had looked at for centuries. What he found would change everything they thought they knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. 3 days passed before Dr. Feltov found anything useful in the ancient databases. During those 3 days, the Academy was buzzing with rumors about the humans who had scared a Shadow Maw. Some students claimed it was impossible. Others whispered that humans must have secret weapons or mind control powers. Hyun and Nari tried to continue with their normal classes, but every instructor wanted to test them. They were scanned, questioned, and studied by experts from across the galaxy. Every test showed the same thing. They were completely normal humans with no special abilities. The Shadow Maw had been moved to a special research facility on the other side of the academy. Even there, separated by walls and distance, it became agitated whenever Hyun or Nari came within 100 meters of the building. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Feltoff explained to Director Saxlon during their daily meeting. "The creature's fear response gets stronger the closer they get. It's like it can sense them through solid walls." "Have you found anything in the historical records?" the director asked. Dr. Feltoff nodded and activated the holographic display in his office. Ancient symbols and fragmented text appeared in the air between them. "I've been searching through the oldest databases we have. Most of them are incomplete and many are written in languages that died out millions of years ago. But I found some interesting patterns." The first image showed a star map with several systems marked in red. These are worlds where apex predator species went extinct for unknown reasons. The extinctions happened at different times, but they all have one thing in common. He switched to another image, showing crude drawings carved into stone. Archaeological evidence suggests that small bipedal creatures were present on these worlds shortly before the extinctions occurred. Director Saxlon leaned forward to study the carvings. "These creatures, they look similar to humans. Very similar. The beings were described as hairless, walking upright on two legs, with pale skin and small bodies. But here's the strange part." Dr. Feltoff highlighted certain symbols in the carvings. "According to these records, the apex predators didn't fight these creatures. They fled from them. That makes no sense. Why would massive predators run from something so small?" Dr. Feltoff switched to another set of images. These showed deep claw marks carved into cave walls and rock formations. "We found these on 7 different worlds. The claw marks go deep into solid stone, suggesting desperate attempts to escape or hide." The director studied the images carefully. What were they trying to escape from? That's what I wondered too. So I kept digging deeper into the archives. Dr. Feltoff's expression grew more serious. "I found fragments of records from the Zethkaran Empire. They're one of the oldest known civilizations in the galaxy." The hologram changed again, showing symbols that looked like a mixture of writing and artwork. The Zethkarans sent scouts to thousands of worlds during their expansion period. Most of their reports are standard: descriptions of local species, resource availability, colonization potential. But there's one report that's different. He pulled up a specific document. Even though it was translated into modern language, something about the text felt ominous. "This is a report from a scouting mission to a small planet in what we now call the Sol system, the third planet from the star." Director Saxelon's eyes widened. "Earth?" "Yes. The scouts landed on Earth approximately 50,000 years ago, during humanity's early evolutionary period. They expected to find primitive creatures that could be used as slaves or livestock." Dr. Feltoff paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Instead, they found something that terrified them so much that they abandoned the mission and recommended that the entire system be marked as forbidden." "What did they find?" The doctor activated an audio recording. The voice that came through the speakers was thin and reedy, speaking in an ancient language with subtitles appearing below. "Day 47 of the Earth mission. We have made a terrible discovery. The bipedal creatures on this world are not what they appear to be. They are hunters unlike anything we have encountered in the galaxy." The recording crackled with age, but the fear in the alien voice was clear. "They do not hunt for territory or resources or mates. They hunt because they choose to hunt. We observed them tracking creatures for days without rest, without food, without sleep. They simply follow until their prey collapses from exhaustion." Director Saxlon felt a chill run down his spine. "Persistence hunting." "The report gets worse," Dr. Feltoff continued. "Listen to this part." The ancient voice continued. "We attempted to capture one of the creatures for study. It was small and appeared weak. Our warriors are trained killers from the most dangerous worlds in the Empire. But when they looked into the creature's eyes, they froze. Even our bravest fighters could not move. The creature did nothing aggressive. It simply looked at them. But something in that gaze told them that they were looking at a predator far superior to anything they had ever encountered. Our warriors fled. The recording ended. The office fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. "There's more," Dr. Feltov said quietly. "The final entry in the report is a recommendation to the Zeth-Karan High Command." He pulled up the last document. It was shorter than the others, but its message was clear. Classification: Apex Predator, Extreme Danger. Recommendation: Mark system as forbidden. These creatures must never be contacted again. They are not prey. They are not potential allies. They are the hunters that other hunters have nightmares about. The report concludes with this warning. Any creature that looks into their eyes will know on an instinctual level that it is looking at death itself. Director Saxelon sat back in his chair, his mind racing. But humans seem so peaceful. They have no natural weapons, they're not particularly strong or fast. That's what makes them so dangerous, Dr. Feltov replied. Every other predator species in the galaxy relies on obvious advantages: size, strength, speed, natural weapons. Humans develop something far more terrifying, which is patient, relentless determination. They don't need to be stronger or faster than their prey. They just need to be more stubborn. They will follow a target for weeks if necessary, never giving up, never stopping, until it collapses from exhaustion. Dr. Feltov switched the hologram to show human evolutionary history. Look at their development on Earth. They hunted the mammoth to extinction using nothing but primitive spears and endless patience. They spread across their entire planet, adapting to every environment because nothing could stop them from going wherever they wanted to go. And somehow, Director, Saxelon said slowly, other predator species can sense this about them. It appears that way. The Shadowmaw's reaction suggests that this knowledge is encoded at a genetic level in most predator species. Millions of years of evolution have taught the galaxy's hunters to recognize and fear the ultimate persistence predator. They sat in silence for a moment, both thinking about the implications. What do we do with this information? The director finally asked. Dr. Feltov looked at the data scrolling across his screen. I think we need to warn the Galactic Council. If humans ever decide to become aggressive, if they ever turn their hunting instincts toward conquest instead of cooperation. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Outside in the academy corridors, Hyun and Nari walked to their next class, completely unaware that they had just been identified as the most dangerous predators in galactic history. 1 week later, the Academy's main conference room was filled with officials from across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species had traveled to Nexus Prime to witness what Director Saxelon was calling the most important discovery in galactic history. Hyun and Nari sat at a small table in the center of the room, surrounded by alien dignitaries, military commanders, and scientists. They had been told that this meeting would determine humanity's future relationship with the rest of the galaxy. Before we begin, announced Director Saxelon, I want everyone to observe the demonstration that started this investigation. The Shadowmaw's cage was brought into the room by a team of heavily armed guards. The creature itself was barely conscious, kept sedated to prevent it from hurting itself in terror. Even drugged, it whimpered softly when the cage was positioned near the humans. This Shadowmaw has killed trained warriors from 17 different species, the director explained. It has never shown fear of anything in its entire life, until now. He gestured to Hyun. Please approach the cage. Hyun stood up and walked calmly toward the massive creature. As he got closer, the Shadowmaw's sedation began to wear off from pure terror. Its 6 red eyes snapped open and focused on him. The creature tried to press itself through the back wall of its cage, making sounds of absolute panic. Gasps and shocked whispers filled the room. Several representatives stood up to get a better view. Others backed away from their seats. As you can see, Director Saxelon continued, the reaction is immediate and extreme. Dr. Feltov will now present our findings about why this occurs. Dr. Feltov activated the room's holographic display. The same ancient records and archaeological evidence he had shown the director appeared in the air above them. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various genders, he began. What you are witnessing is the result of genetic memory dating back millions of years. Every predator species in this room carries the instinctual knowledge that humans are the ultimate hunters. The room erupted in protests and disbelief. A Kragnari general stood up, his forearms crossed angrily. This is impossible. Humans are weak. They have no natural weapons. That's exactly what makes them so dangerous, Dr. Feltov replied calmly. Allow me to explain. The hologram changed to show Earth's evolutionary history. Images of early humans tracking massive animals across vast distances appeared in the air. Humans evolved as persistence predators. Unlike every other hunting species in the galaxy, they don't rely on strength, speed, or natural weapons. They rely on something far more terrifying, the absolute refusal to give up. He showed footage of human marathon runners, mountain climbers, and Arctic explorers. Humans can run for hours without stopping. They can go days without sleep. They can survive in environments that would kill most other species. And most importantly, once they decide to pursue something, they never stop. A representative from the peaceful Altair system raised her hand. But humans seem so friendly and cooperative. How can they be dangerous? Because they choose not to. Dr. Feltov answered. Humans are apex predators who have learned to control their hunting instincts. They hunt for sport now, or for food, but they could hunt for conquest if they wanted to. The hologram showed scenes from human history. Armies marching across continents, explorers crossing oceans, settlers moving into hostile wilderness. Look at their expansion across their own planet. Humans spread to every continent, every climate, every environment. Nothing stopped them. They adapted to Arctic cold, desert heat, mountain heights, ocean depths. They turned the entire planet into their hunting ground. And now, Director Saxlon added, they're beginning to spread beyond their planet. The question is, what do we do about it? The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at Hyun and Nari, who sat quietly through the entire presentation. They seemed completely unaware of the fear and tension their presence was causing. Finally, Hyun raised his hand politely. Excuse me, but I think there might be some misunderstanding. Please speak, Director Saxelon said. Hyun stood up and looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. You're talking about humans like we're monsters who want to hunt everyone. But that's not true. We came here to learn how to help protect the galaxy, not to hurt anyone. But you have the instincts, protested the Kragnari general. The hunting drive. Yes, Hyun agreed. But we also have something else, the choice of what to hunt. He paused, thinking carefully about his words. We used to hunt animals for food. Then we learned to farm. We used to hunt other humans in wars. Then we learned to cooperate. Now we want to hunt problems, diseases, disasters, injustice. Nari stood up beside him. Humans are persistence predators, yes. But we're persistent about more than just hunting. We're persistent about learning, about helping, about making things better. She looked directly at the shadow maw, which whimpered and tried to hide. That creature is afraid of us because it can sense our hunting nature. But it can't understand that we choose what to hunt. Right now we're hunting knowledge, not people. Dr. Feltov consulted his notes. The ancient records suggest that humans could be extremely dangerous if they turned their persistence toward conquest. Of course we could, Hyun replied simply. Any species could be dangerous if they chose to be. The question is, why would we want to? He gestured around the room. Look at all of you. Hundreds of different species all working together, all sharing knowledge and resources. You've built something amazing here. Why would we want to destroy it when we could help make it even better? The room was quiet for a long moment. Then a voice spoke up from the back. What guarantees do we have? How do we know humans won't change their minds? Hyun considered the question seriously. You don't, he said finally. Just like we don't know that any of your species won't turn aggressive someday. Trust isn't about guarantees. It's about choosing to believe that others will do the right thing. And if you're wrong? Asked the Kragnari general. Nari answered this time. Then you deal with the problem when it happens. But if you spend all your time being afraid of what might happen, you miss out on all the good things that could happen. Instead, Director Saxelon stood up. The humans make valid points. However, the fact remains that they represent a potential threat unlike any we've encountered before. So do all of you, Yun pointed out. The Kragnari are incredible warriors. The Velothi are perfect assassins. The Altarians could probably poison our entire planet if they wanted to. Every species here has the ability to cause massive destruction. Looked around the room again. But you don't. You work together instead. You built this academy to train peacekeepers, not conquerors. You created the Galactic Council to solve problems with words instead of weapons. What are you suggesting? Asked Director Saxelon. Let us prove ourselves, Nari said. Judge us by our actions, not by what some ancient aliens were afraid we might do. Give us the chance to show that humans can be trusted. The room erupted, in discussion as representatives talked among themselves. Some argued for accepting the humans into galactic society. Others wanted them quarantined on Earth for everyone's safety. Finally, Director Saxelon called for order. We will put this to a vote. All in favor of allowing humans to continue their studies at the Academy and eventually join galactic society as full members? Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose around the room. It wasn't unanimous, but it was a clear majority. All opposed? Fewer appendages rose this time. The motion passes. Humans will be granted full membership in galactic society, with the understanding that their actions will be closely monitored. As the meeting ended and representatives began filing out of the room, Instructor Vextar approached Hyun and Nari. I owe you an apology, he said, his scales shifting to a lighter color. I have spent my career teaching students about fear, but you have taught me something more important. What's that? Nari asked. That being feared and being dangerous are not the same thing. True strength comes from choosing not to use your full power. He looked at the Shadow Maw, still cowering in its cage. That creature is feared because it has no choice but to be what it is. You are feared because others sense. You could be the ultimate predators, but you choose to be something better. Hyun smiled. Our instructor on Earth used to say that the strongest person in the room is often the one who never has to prove it. As they walked out of the conference room together, the Shadow Maw was finally able to calm down. For the first time in weeks, it stopped whimpering and began to eat again. Outside, Zeph was waiting for them in the hallway. The big Kragnari looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I wanted to say something, he began awkwardly. I was wrong about humans, being weak. You weren't completely wrong, Hyun replied. We are physically weaker than Kragnari. But you're stronger in other ways. Zeph paused, struggling with the words. When I looked into that creature's eyes, I saw my own death. But when you looked at it, it saw something worse than death. What's worse than death? Nari asked. Zeph thought about it for a moment. Being hunted by something that will never, ever give up. As they continued down the hallway toward their next class, none of them noticed that the conversation was being recorded by Academy security systems. The recording would eventually make its way to the Galactic Council,